All right, so I officially call the meeting to order. And Chris, you've noted the roll. We do have a quorum. So I'll begin with public audience. If there's anyone here tonight that would like to speak for public audience. No? All right, then we can just get into it. I'll present my screen so that we have the agenda up. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, sorry. I'll need to presenter rights. Right. All right. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 2025 regular meeting as submitted, or does anyone, so actually,
I'll move. So move the
excellent.
minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. All those opposed? Any abstain? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. So the minutes will be approved for the October 2025 regular meeting as submitted. We can kick off the reports from ex officio members. I do have Tom's report. If anyone would like to go first, I can read his report for him, as unfortunately he wasn't able to be here tonight. But otherwise, is there anyone else who would prefer to kick us off? Maybe Holly, because I know that you're time constrained tonight.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I was again out of town for the last meeting, so I'm going to catch you up for September and October activities of the Planning Commission. In our first meeting of September, we went through the same thing that you went through at your last meeting here at the Sustainability Committee. We had a presentation on the Nod Road solar project. So I have nothing new to tell you that you didn't already hear in your last meeting. And also during that time, we made a positive referral to the Zoning Commission for a text amendment to create new zoning regulations for dark sky lighting. And this would affect, and I understand it passed zoning, for the Simsbury zoning regulations, the Hartford Simsbury zone-based code, and the Simsbury Center code. Is everybody familiar with dark skies lighting? Or rather, I want to ask, is anyone not familiar with that term?
No, but for the purpose of the minutes, if you wanted to just give a 1-sentence description.
So what it is to have regulations regarding the amount of light being sent up into the sky at night for two main reasons. One, because it is very difficult for the wildlife. It confuses them for migrating birds and non-migrating birds for that matter. And for all other nocturnal animals, having lit skies is not good for them. But also it's wasteful of energy. It's better that if you need energy to direct the lighting down and also to turn it off. We have way too many large parking lots and industrial areas that have lighting on at all times of the night and day. So it's just some simple common sense regulations they want to create. Although this amendment was just to create those, it didn't say what those that text would be, but basically to have a light going down and not up into the sky, and then to have some restrictions on when things are lit at night. And then also in September, we conducted a public workshop at Terriffill School. This year we had finished up the Terriffill Center plan. It's part of an ongoing project that the Planning Commission is doing for all of our neighborhoods that we identified in the plan of conservation and development. And so Terriffill was the first one out. It was, quite frankly, the easiest one because Terriffill has such a well-mobilized group of citizens that have spent a lot of time thinking about the direction they want to take the town in. So that was very good. We had a lot of input. We had many public sessions for the input, and this was a public session for input on the recommendations. So we approved the plan in July, and then it had a number of recommendations, and we wanted to prioritize. We wanted public input from TerraFill to prioritize those recommendations. And I think we'll be publishing that next month, the list of prioritized implementations for the TerraFill plan. The other thing that we are starting to work on is to update the Simsbury Affordable Housing Plan. Now, this is something we worked on during COVID that the Planning Commission worked on, and it was approved in January of 2021. In that time period, in the last 5 years, we have issued permits or approved plans to build. Either they've been completed or they're in progress, or the plans have been approved to create 893 multifamily homes. In that same time frame, we have approved and completed, in some instances, 11 single-family homes. So that's a big difference between 11 single-family homes and 893 multifamily homes. And I'm proud of saying that, because in the press, we get a lot of, I'll just call it what it is, slander, lies, told about us regarding our willingness to provide multifamily homes. But the reality is quite different, 893 versus 11. However, because of how the state government or the state legislature defines affordable in 830G, we've only added 4 new affordable homes in that time frame, and those were the ones that were done off of the development I'm trying to think of the name of the place. That small development that had 4 homes in it in off of the road that's in the very southern part of Simsbury. I apologize. I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Hendricks?
That was it. Hendricks Place. The issue is, again, what we think of as affordable, what normal people think of as affordable, is how much you pay for something. And when we created our study in 2020, we had done research to find out what the price range was for all the homes that had been sold in the last year, in 2019 at that time. And at that point, the state defines that affordable must be at least for families of 4 making 80% of the area mean income, AMI, or below. And that they should not spend more than 30% of their income on a residence. And at that time, 1/4 of all of the home sales in Simsbury met that criterion by price. Absolutely none of them were considered affordable because they weren't deed restricted, which is a shame, because if you want intergenerational wealth, if you want people to use affordable housing to have equity in a home, you really don't want a deed restriction, because that means that they can't take the equity. You're only allowed to increase the value of that home if the median salaries keep pace with the price of the home, which sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So it's a bit of a quandary and those are the only things that are considered affordable. So as we plan our next session of affordable homes, we have approximately 10,000 housing units of which per 830G, we can only claim 418 as affordable. Again, it's because 287 have government assistance, 101 have either CHFA or USDA funding, and 28 are deed restricted. It does not at all reflect the price of homes in Simsbury at all. But that's the rules and regulations. Today, currently, as we begin making our new updated plan, it's something that we need to do every 5 years. The current area median income is $126,000 per year. 80% of that means affordable begins at, or the highest threshold for affordability is for a family of 4 with an income of $101,000. Meaning affordable does not mean low income, unfortunately. And when you set that target for developers, that's what they meet. Developers, unless the rules and regulations say you have to go lower than that amount, they'll be targeting the $90,000 to $100,000 price range. We also learned that the new luminary apartments were not constrained to have any affordable housing, affordable units. So they had a representative at the meeting saying that they would like to see a tax rebate from the town of Simsbury to be able to offer an apartment that could be afforded by someone making $90,000. Again, I'm not saying that's what I think affordable is. I'm just saying that's what we're dealing with in dealing with the state. Now, we haven't created the plan. I'm just giving you the inputs for that, but that's what we'll be working on in 2026. And the other thing is I need to get together with Jamie. We have some action items that we've done in the POCD implementation plan, and I just want to get with you to so that we get credit for it. In general, we're credited for doing something on all fronts that we've been assigned in the POCD, which we actually actively participated in those assignments. But we have some completed activities and some activities that we've done quite a bit in, and so I'm just going to go with you to sit down with you to review those.
Excellent. Look forward to that.
Okay. And any questions?
Oh, I had one question, Holly. Do we know what's going on with the vessel on Hot Meadow? It seems like construction's stalled on that.
Again, the vessel is something that the zoning commission approved, not planning. So we get involved if it's a single owner. If it's multiple units, if it's a subdivision. But vessel will only have one owner, so that was zoning commission, just to be honest with you. But as you know, there were a number of concerns. We went back and forth. They took us to court to kind of force the issue. There was some compromises made to reduce the number of units so that there could be a few more parking spaces. It was concerned that it's on a major road and there was not sufficient parking for the units, for the residents. And now it appears that they're asking for a number of exceptions to some of our building codes. And so and again, that's outside of my pay grade. So, but that's what we've heard about that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think I saw Susan's hand.
Well, I heard that for Vessel, I think it was at a zoning meeting, that there were issues with their fire safety and the state was involved. But if Holly hasn't heard that, I don't know.
Again, they don't report to us at all.
Yeah, I think that there was that going on.
Yeah. I know that they're asking for more than one exception to regulations.
Well, maybe that's related to this, what I just said, that it has something to do with fire. I don't know.
I heard there's a number of issues.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics. So, so I think there's a number of building code, or not just state, but also town codes that they're having trouble meeting.
Okay.
And you're saying that's working its way through the zoning commission.
Well, I actually, the zoning commission has already approved. So now I think it is in zoning enforcement or in our town engineering. I don't know, but it's other departments in the town of Simsbury that are dealing with Vessel on that.
Noted. Thank you. Any other questions for Holly tonight?
Good report, Holly. It was
Yeah,
loaded.
thank you.
A
That
lot
was
of-
meaty. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but that's good. That's good
Yeah.
to stay on top of all that.
Excellent. Lydia, did you want to go next?
Sure. I'll just be briefly. Last week we had our regular Board of Ed meeting, and Jason Casey had brought forward some capital improvement project plans, just the review as we're moving into starting our budget, crafting our budget in about a month or so. So there's 4 areas that we are looking at: the roof replacement. Will be, the first phase for the Henry James was planned for this year, but it's going to be postponed to a later date. The high school turf and track resurfacing has risen to the top because that has reached the end of its life expectancy and warranty. And if any of you have been on the track or the field, you'll understand what we're talking about. So it was last resurfaced in 2016. So there's a lot of damage and a lot of injury. So we need to move on that to have that track done. We are continuing with our network improvements. So this is a recurring biennial capital fund, and it's for the whole entire district for the technology infrastructure. And then of course our flooring improvements within the 7 schools will need to be done. So that's what's going to be coming down the planning meetings when we start our budgets. Next week, we'll be meeting, and Tecton Architects, they were the ones that also worked on the Latimer Lane project, but they will be coming to meet with us because we have a master plan and reconfiguration study for the school district, which they had started. So we are talking about Squadron Line School and a couple of the options. As we go forward, we have to meet the needs of the student population. One is a continued maintenance only option, which would be continued maintenance. The second one is a renovate as new comprehensive. The third would be a new building somewhere on the existing site. So you're all welcome to attend the meeting or tune into it. And Tecton will, provide the existing condition update, conceptual design, and cost estimate about these 3 options as we go forward. So that's what is happening on our front now. And we had a very successful election day, no issues at any of the schools, and everything went well. So we're very, very happy with that. Any questions?
Excellent.
Anyone?
Lydia, a couple questions for me. One is, so very excited to hear the plans moving forward and completely understand the cadence that you laid out. Curious, so now that we have passed the part 1 of the energy plan, and a couple pieces of that include things like, hey, when you're about to look at construction, consider a net,
Right.
net zero HVAC system, consider getting that solar on the roof, et cetera.
Mhm.
So what's the mechanism now as we're about to start on some of these projects to ensure that that's happening?
We haven't started any of them yet. We're still in the
Planning.
planning stage. So we will talk more deeply about the roof, the track, the network floor, all of these areas as we go forward. And then we are just starting, as I said, with Squadron Line, starting the conversation. So we're going to get information from Tectron about all that. But solar, the solar on the roofs for Latimer Lane and Simsbury High, these are all part of plans as we continue moving forward, and they are in the year space. So these are all areas that we're concerned about, and we're going to have conversation. But I encourage you, if you have questions, come to the meeting or email superintendent about this, because we really would like to have, and obviously we'll have a lot of community input, especially with Squadron Line. We will be doing, our forums and our meetings with the community, as we have done with other schools. So that's the time also to ask the questions, but be present. And we're very aware of what's coming down the pike. And again, there's always the budget constraint that we are up against, but we want to make the right decision, the right time, for the right reason, for what we're doing. So, but yeah, these are things that have been taken into consideration also.
Okay. No, that's super helpful. Because of course, one of the things here is hoping, for example, if you are putting solar on the roof, that you're actually seeing savings from that you could then potentially reimburse into or reinvest into the project in other ways. So yeah, for me, it's just understanding that mechanism. I hear you, community meetings are one venue, but now that we have alignment on the principles of, refurbishing or building, let's look at these things. So I guess maybe this is something we can pick up offline, even with Jason and Matt, the superintendent. And of course,
it's if you can't attend the meeting, try to tune into it, because Tectron, Jeff Wisniewski is the principal architect, and he has done a lot of work with our district. So he's very well versed in many of these areas. So we're very interested in hearing about this also, as we start the conversation and as we move through the budget process. But it's always interesting to have the conversation in the beginning to where we finally end up. But, we are definitely, it's been on our mind, and we are starting with the conversation. So no decisions have been made. They're strictly going to be showing us the options that we can choose from, that we can afford, and what we think is best, as I said, for the school. So what's best for the learning needs, what's best for students, what's best for the, for the district. So that's where we are with this. So it's always interesting. I find it interesting when architects and professionals come and, to talk about this. You get to see their sketches, their specs, and have that conversation. And they certainly, are there to answer any of our questions, and have always been very helpful when any questions have popped up. So
great. Maybe we could even take it a step further and potentially connect this committee with Tecton, so that we can have that conversation even directly. That could be super helpful.
And he is a Simsbury resident too. So he's
perfect.
So they're always ready and willing to speak with anyone interested in, the technical aspects of buildings and maintenance and renovate that. So it's always a good idea. The more people that understand, I think, the better off the community is, to really know where your tax dollars are going and why, we in the Board of Ed are going with this option versus this one. So we could have that. I can arrange to do that with him.
That would be fantastic. Perfect.
We can talk.
Thank you so much.
I think that would be great. So, Brian, in answer to your question about electric buses, we own our own buses. Salters we're contracted with Salters, so they hire their drivers, but the Board of Education, the town, owns the buses.
Okay.
So it's all under our budget with that. And we're very good about replacing our buses every 3 years. We do not presently have any electric buses. We have talked about it. at the board level about, what's the option of purchasing an electric bus, seeing where we're going to go with that. Jim Salter has always been very, very good being in the conversations, obviously, with us where we go with that. But I have seen electric buses in use in other parts of the country. Not too many in the state, but I think it will come at some point. I think we will be, at some point turning a corner. But again, it is a budgetary item. And since we do own the buses, that's, in our purview of that. So, but it's always a very interesting conversation. I have been on them. I have seen them, and I think they're fantastic. But again, I can't remember the cost of a new bus of what's the price is, but
Sure.
who knows down the line. So.
You said
Yeah,
every
I mean, we
3
do
years?
have a Connecticut state mandate looming ahead on that, so it will be
Yes.
interesting to see
Yes.
that timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. Many districts do.
Oh, go
Sorry, go
Daniela.
Yeah, many
No, no, no,
districts do, they do contract out with other bus companies. So I can't speak for them, what their situations are, because they are private bus companies, school bus companies, but we do not do that. We have never done that. We've always had a very good relationship with Salters Bus Express, and they run all our district routes everywhere. So Daniela.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I'd be curious to see what kind of financing the Connecticut Green Bank maybe has in terms of this. But
They do have some kind of program. I don't know the details. I was at I met somebody who works there. He was giving a presentation, and he mentioned the mandate, the state mandate, and the fact that the Green Bank,
yeah,
has programs to help with this. So there's got to be something there.
The thing is that if the state, we already have enough mandates that come through every year, and we can barely keep up with them. But if there is a mandate that comes through, the question is, will that funding also come through to the districts? And most of the time it does not. So that is one thing, but I'm sure they'll have discussion at the General Assembly in January about this also. So.
Yeah, and even without any funding to come along with it, I think if you just simply look at it from a cost benefit analysis, I think they do end up better in the long run. But I wanted to ask, you said you replace buses every 3 years? Can you
Yeah, we
elaborate on
replace,
that?
because there's a timeline on the buses. So we do very well with replacing our buses. They rotate through the fleet. So we try not to let them go past the end date of when we need to have new ones. So we've always been able to keep up with that. I don't remember exactly how many buses or vans that we have in the fleet. But we've always ended up, and that's one of the budgetary items that comes through for us. So, and we've
Does this
never had
mean-
an issue.
Does this mean none of the buses in Simsbury are older than 3 years, or does
Oh,
this?
no. We
Yeah.
look at the buses and with Salters, the years that they have been on the road. It's usually about like 12 years or so. And don't ask me how many routes in miles, because I don't have those numbers in my brain tonight. But we have all that information, but usually at the end of their life cycle. And what we do is we plan in the budget year before to make sure that we are purchasing a bus or a van, that it's up and running for the start of a school year. So we never want to be delayed in that area. So.
Yeah. I think where Salter would come in is, the charging infrastructure.
Yeah,
If you want to get
absolutely. And these are great conversations and great discussions, and you feel free to talk to Jim Salter anytime you want. He loves to discuss all things yellow school buses and have the conversations, because he also participates, at the state level on some of these conversations and discussions about it. But sure, you can stop by any time and have a conversation with him about that too. So. And
I will say that's a perfect segue to one of the agenda items later in the night, where we're taking those 4 pillars from part 1 of our energy plan and kind of assigning actions to them.
We could always have him come on and speak with us if you'd like.
Yeah, especially it would be especially interesting to hear if he's aware of any districts in Connecticut that are electrifying the school fleet.
Yeah, he would do that. He'd come on and speak with us about that. And he's very knowledgeable about as I said, often use yellow school buses.
Very helpful. Thank you. Any other questions for Lydia? All right, Joe, if you don't mind.
Yeah, just two things, one on the swap shop, one on food scraps. So the swap shop, finished up the season at the end of October, and the recycling committee put together their report. They had 935 items adopted through the season, and that, they had over 1,000 visitors. They were open 27 Saturdays. They averaged about 40 visitors a Saturday. And it was a total of about 162 volunteer hours to man it. So those are the stats for this year. And it's now closed until the beginning of April 2026. The other thing on food scraps, I do want to share my screen shortly, but the Simsbury Food Scrap Recovery Program, which began in April of 24, it just consists of a bin at the transfer station. And when it was created, that's when Payne's was running the transfer station. So Chris, you may know better, but I guess it was up to Payne's to get the food scraps to Quantum Biopower, I believe. You're muted. You're muted.
I thought they came and picked them up, but I may be wrong.
Okay. So now, USA Waste and Recycling runs the transfer station. So I guess they're still getting picked up by I don't know, is it Blue Earth or the folks at that digester in?
I'm not sure who it is.
Okay.
But I also think there's some sort of best availability. I don't know if they're consistent about who comes and gets it.
Okay. Well, one thing I stumbled across, I just wanted to share my screen here. Let's see here. Okay, sure. So I found two things. Can you guys all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is the totals from April 1st to September 30th for the miniature liquor bottle for each town, the stats. So Simsbury's right in the middle here. So, they had a little over 168,000 of the miniature bottles collected, at a nickel a piece. That's, about $8,400. And over here to the left, you can see West Hartford had 451,000, and they had about 22. That realized them about $22,500. So, they're pulling in about 2.5 times more, than Simsbury is. But with those funds, they let's see, let me just can't find my tab here. Let's see. I found this article here in weha.com where they're using their surcharge funds. Well, first they spent $51,000 on hiring a recycling coordinator. And I don't know if that's a full-time position or not, but that person is behind this food scrap recovery program. They have private trash pickup in West Hartford. And, unlike, I mean, they have town pickup in West Hartford. Unlike us, we have private. And they have been rolling out food scrap recovery bins to certain areas of the town, certain neighborhoods. But for the rest of the town, what they've done is they've deployed these food scrap, recovery containers here. This article is from the middle of October. So they have 4 of these bins deployed in town, the bins that you see on the screen here. They have 2 at Town Hall, and then a couple others at some other locations, and they're going to be expanding it to 10 more locations. So if you're not part of their residential pickup, if you see one of these around town, you can drop off your food scrap recoveries in these bins. And when I saw them, I mean, just looking at this picture here, these 2 bins, I think that's Town Hall in West Hartford right there, but they're highly visible. And, I'm sure it attracts a lot of interest. Our program gets 0 publication. Even when you go to the transfer station, you got to hunt to find the bin. So this seems like, it could, I don't know how much we have in the miniature funds to pay for something like this, because you have to pay for the bins. And then West Hartford has Blue Earth service the bins and bring the contents to Southington to the digester. But one thing that's interesting is if you go down here, you have to become a registered user, and you have to download an app onto your phone, and it's called the Metro Key app. And what's interesting about it is here's the Metro Key website, right? So it looks like you can set up bins that aren't just for food scraps. You can have battery, glass, crinkly plastic, and things like that. And when I read all the way through this, and down at the bottom, what's interesting is they have I guess one of their headquarters or offices is in Windsor, Connecticut. I'm not sure if you guys, let's see, can you see that? It's in Windsor, Connecticut. So just to wrap up here, it's been in the first 5 months, it seems like they collected 30,000 pounds at these bins. They're going to be deploying 10 more. They're serviced by Blue Earth. There's 923 residents that are registered users of the bins. So I'm going to try to find out some more information about this, the cost of the bins and so forth, and try to find out, how much money we do have in our miniatures funds, just to see if anything like this, would be possible. It just seems like just having those bins in places of high traffic, or like on the side of our town hall, or other places where they'll be seen, it'll get a lot more interest and, maybe a lot more participation. So
It's
that's
like the kind of sounds like the food scrap version of the clink collection place at Stop and Shop.
Yeah, and I by the way, I
Mhm.
saw another clink up at the Granby Stop and Shop. So that's all I had.
Joe, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I know our NIP fund is committed to. We spend it every year. I'm not sure exactly what it's spent on, but I've heard it come up before, and there are funds being consumed.
Yeah,
by
I
that
think
one.
we would have to raise our hand in the budgeting process, right? And say, we have this proposal for these
Yes.
funds, and this is how much of the funds that we would be asking for. And then it would be subject to
Right.
review versus the other things that are also being asked for
Right.
against those funds, which I'm sure the list is long.
Yeah, I mean, you have the cost of the bin.
But we could also try looking for grant money for it or something. I mean, there are other ways to
So
feed the cat. But
I'll try to get a better handle on the costs. Maybe I can make contact with that West Hartford recycling coordinator and find out.
well, is that the Catherine?
Yep. Yeah,
I-
Catherine Burns, I think.
Have you met her? Because I know, Mark, you have spoken with, and I think Baird also, but Mark, you and Catherine have connected frequently on different topics, correct?
Yep. And she's always willing to help. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get feedback often comparing us to West Hartford and what we should be able to accomplish. And I think their tax revenue is about 13 times Simsbury's. So it's just a totally different scale. I'm not saying it can't happen, but instead of 10 bins, maybe we can get 1 or 2, something like that.
Yeah. And put them in a high traffic, to your point, like, maybe
Right.
near where there's several restaurants, maybe in downtown or something along those lines, where you would normally see more traffic come through, or a shop, or to your point, like a grocery store plaza or something along those lines, something that has more visibility. But thank you. Great.
I'll find out from where the NIP funds, what they're used for, or where they're designated for. For some reason, I thought it went to Public Works.
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay. So my memory's coming back, but for
Yeah.
Public Works, for something there. But unless you have that, on your hand, I'll just.
No, I could find out. But I've heard it talked about.
It's just curious for the past, how long we've been doing this? 3 years. So for the past 3 years, if this is correct, where those funds have been allocated and for what?
Yeah, I believe it's some sort of environmental fund
Within,
for expense.
right, Public Works.
We
right.
don't buy diesel with it and put it in the trucks.
Mhm.
We do something productive with it. I just don't know what it is.
Right. You can't buy a snowplow for that.
Yeah,
So-
unfortunately, no.
Not even the plow, never mind.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting to see.
All right. It would be. And side note, can we ever name our snowplows those cute and funny names like other towns do?
Yeah, we've talked about doing some fun programs like that.
Like you could have a contest, name the plow.
Yep. We thought
like
about
a
having
good
a
school
paint
kid
plow
contest.
contest too.
Oh yeah, kids would love to do that. They could
Yeah.
name their favorite plow.
Awesome. All right. So I will give Tom Earls notes from the Economic Development Commission. In his absence today, he did submit them to me earlier. So his update was that John McCormick, the executive vice president of CBRE, which is a firm that supplies commercial real estate services and investments, spoke at their last meeting. John works primarily in Connecticut, knows the office real estate situation in the Farmington Valley, including Simsbury, very well. And he walked the commission through various empty office spaces in Simsbury, outlining why they're vacant and how we might work to attract businesses and renters for these spaces. He said the key for towns like Simsbury is to determine what type of business we want to come to our town, market the location and the town aggressively, and then make adjustments to our zoning or taxation and repurposing to attract those tenants. And after John or Mr. McCormick's presentation, the EDC discussed a plan to focus on 2 or 3 properties and work to attract the appropriate tenants. He also mentioned that David Bush, who is the Culture, Parks, and Recreation Chair, spoke and went over in detail all the various attractions Simsbury has that not only makes the town an attractive place to live, but also a tourist destination. In particular, he noted the Performing Arts Center on Iron Horse, Simsbury Farms Recreation Area, and the ISCC Skating Center, which includes the plans to add a hotel, which will attract outside visitors who would be staying for hockey tournaments, skating events, those sorts of things. He also mentioned all the parks, walkways, trails, etc., that residents enjoy and that attract tourists through our town. All of these various parts of Simsbury support responsible economic development. And then the EDC discussed the McLean Meadow Homes project in the context of how it supports economic development by adding to the town's tax rolls. McLean had made a presentation to the EDC at the previous meeting about the project. Some residents also took the opportunity to present reasons why the development should not go forward. The EDC then discussed whether to support the project. The decision on a resolution to support this project was tabled for further discussion at the next meeting. So if that is of particular interest for anybody, I would suggest following along at the next meeting. Unfortunately, I can't answer any questions, but if there are any for Tom, I'm sure he will take them via email. And that brings us to the conclusion of our ex officio reports. I'll represent the agenda. All right, and this brings us to old business, of which there is none. So then that brings us to new business. So congratulations to everyone who has worked so long, so hard, who has volunteered their time, effort, and expertise to get part 1 of our sustainability plan passed at the Board of Selectmen meeting last month. So the sustainability plan part 1 focused on energy, and we have the 4 key pillars of that energy plan, which is improving energy efficiency of buildings in town. There's a piece about schools and a piece about schools and businesses, and a piece about residents. There's also the second focus area of helping all in town lower their energy costs through solar and battery storage. The third focus area is transition of heating and cooling to electric heat pumps or other net zero alternatives. And then the fourth is transition of transportation to electric vehicles. So what I'm hoping for today is we could briefly, and I am cognizant of time, and this is a marathon, not a sprint, but if we could briefly discuss maybe what some of the next steps are for each of these focus areas and who would really like to volunteer. Ideally, I would love to see maybe one person leading each focus area and then a couple folks supporting as working groups, because there will be lots to do. So I'm going to stop sharing the agenda for a moment, and I'm going to actually pull up the sustainability plan itself, just so we can have that language in front of us as we discuss. So bear with me one second. Okay. Yeah. So for the first focus area, improving energy efficiency of buildings in town. As I mentioned, this there are some goals or work streams here for the town and schools. And you see those in front of you. So basically talking about the energy usage and really understanding where we are. I know that a lot of work has already been done to gather this data, but it's also helpful for us to absorb that data as a committee and understand then, I don't want to use the word baseline because that has meaning in this type of work, but to at least understand where we are now versus where we want to be. Secondly, creating a schedule of recently completed energy audits of public buildings. So we know that there have been audits completed, but how can we understand where we are again, and then how can we get better? And then this is going to be a really meaty piece, and this kind of even goes back a little bit to some of the conversation we had earlier related to whether it's the vessel building or the schools, but how can we engage the appropriate town staff, whether that's the engineers, the public building committee, to really hold hands on sustainability guidelines for new construction and retrofits of public buildings? Oops, sorry, I advanced too quickly. So, conversations about the guidelines would be starting from scratch. So this is something where there is going to have to be a lot of subject matter expertise and rich conversation, and understanding that we need to be sensitive to the workloads of the people in those positions and really partner with them without overburdening, their day to day. And so these guidelines, this is going to include certainly conversations about, is there a standard that we're looking to achieve, such as a LEED Gold? Is there something that needs to be included in as it relates to electric vehicles, battery storage, solar, et cetera? So this is also linked to the HVAC focus area, which comes later as well. And then for residents and businesses, it's a little lighter touch. It's really about, who wants to work on keeping the news out there for the residents here and the businesses here in town, of promoting energy efficiency, of really helping people understand what's out there in terms of utility run efficiency programs, audits, things along those lines where they could possibly benefit, and really providing a service to the town in that way. So I'm going to pause there for any questions. And everyone has this document. It's scrolling a little awkwardly because I'm sharing it, but please, I did send it around with the agenda, so feel free to reference it if that's easier offline. But if there's anyone who wants to really raise their hands right now and say, yes, this is the focus area I would love to be engaged with, I would love to hear it.
So I just want to say, not necessarily volunteering at this point, but that last piece, working with businesses in town, I think we can be very targeted in our approach, just simply from a satellite view of buildings in town, just identifying large roofs, right, that are just ready-made for solar, and maybe targeting our communications to those businesses. Just thinking of the 2 racket clubs that we have in town, for example. Those are very large roofs that could fit a lot of panels. So I think we can be very efficient and targeted in how we go about that particular piece of it.
And that is definitely, I love that. I think that's going to fit in especially well in the second focus area of helping all in town lower energy costs through solar and storage. So I love that idea. Here we are saying, again, there's a town goal there and then a residents and businesses goal. So I love the idea of proactively identifying, hey, you got a great roof for solar. Have you thought about it? So I think that I love that.
And I think, I forget who I was talking with. Oh, it was, I forget who it was, but I remember the context of the conversation now, talking about solar in different situations. So I brought up the solar in the parking lot of West Farms, and she actually mentioned that companies prefer, when I say companies, I mean solar companies, prefer not to do that because those require a lot of extra steel in the ground. as opposed to panels that go on existing roofs. So it's a lot more expensive proposition to do something like that.
Interesting.
And you know, the idea of these racket clubs came up, and she said, yeah, she was working with a racket club owner that basically was leasing out their roof space to whatever the company was in town that put the panels on there, because it's like, you know, I rent out the court space under the roof. Why can't I rent out the roof itself
Sure,
for,
if you
for
own the
solar
building,
power
right?
generation? So I think, you know, some business owners, maybe if they're too busy, they don't have time to think through these sorts of things. And so if we can come to them with a ready-made package or something like that, explaining what the options are out there and, you know, what programs are available for them to take advantage of, maybe offer to help connect them if they're interested to the right people, you know, you may get some movement that you otherwise might not have gotten in the short term.
Definitely. I love that idea. And I'm noting that you're not necessarily volunteering at this minute. So, is there anyone, as it relates to specifically the energy efficiency? And so again, kind of to clarify, like this is really analyzing energy audit, and you wouldn't personally be analyzing, but this is really about energy audit data, understanding what the energy efficiency is of our buildings currently in order to set goals to improve that efficiency. And then also the really meaty piece of this one is that idea of working with the appropriate town staff to get those building standards in place moving forward.
So are you talking about changes like to the building code? Is that the level of what we're talking here?
So really not, I'm not being descriptive deliberately, because
Okay.
it's not for us to say Simsbury should change building code necessarily, but it is for us to talk. So what we're finding to this point is that there's a heart and an interest in sustainability in town. There is an economic desire even, you know, to save money on utilities and things like that. However, where things fall through the cracks is the lack of a plan, a lack of a sort of there is no, at this moment in time, requirement or even consideration given to whether it's a solar on a roof or a heat pump system versus a gas powered HVAC system. If the person running that project or the homeowner, you know, running making that choice in their own home, there's nothing that is consistently saying, let's have a standard here, let's investigate this. And so we understand that there are town staff in place who this is their subject matter expertise. And when you have something going on, such as a renovation of a school or another town building, are you going to consider the environmental aspects of that renovation? And is that going to be consistently considered throughout projects? We use LEED as one example of a structure to do that evaluation. It doesn't have to be LEED certification, but are you thinking about the air handling in the building? Are you thinking about the off-gassing of materials in the building? Are you thinking about the recycling of materials from the construction site, you know, ensuring that that debris isn't merely going to a junkyard? You know, and maybe all of this is being done. That's another thing that we are finding as we dig more into things, is that there are a lot of these practices happening, but it's not consistent and it's not maybe readily understood to be the standard. So can we actually standardize the approach to construction in town for the town and for schools? Clearly, we would not be tackling that with businesses and residents at this point. Did that help?
Jamie, I'll work on that if nobody else wants to.
I mean, I'm definitely happy to, I imagine me being consistently available for support through these. So thank you, Baird. I appreciate that. And then from the residents and businesses perspective, is there someone that's just really like feels like being the hype person? So a great example, of course, would be the program that we ran earlier this year where we brought, oh my goodness, the entity's name is escaping me, but they discussed solar battery storage. And we were able to, the Power Smart campaign, where we were able to give residents in town that info session at the library and let them, have a Q&A section and then have access to learn more about battery storage in their homes. So is there anyone who might really feel drawn to help continuing promoting energy efficiency among residents and businesses? So this piece is promoting the availability in this focus area. This piece is really reminding people, hey, you can have the utility come in and actually evaluate the energy efficiency of your home. Right now, 37% of our households have actually done that, but can we get to a higher adoption rate of that and have everyone benefit from it at the end of the day? And there are lots of benefits that come with that audit. And again, if no one's really feeling drawn to this, that's fine. We will all work on it. Don't worry. Okay. So moving into the second focus area, helping everyone in town lower their energy costs through solar and storage. So the first piece is in town and schools. And this is where we're saying, okay, Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, develop specific plans to produce half of your electricity by 2030. That's 2025, the last couple months right now. To get there by 2030 is going to be a huge sprint, especially when you think about the fact that right now our schools at this moment are only producing about 0.3% of their electric. Now, the great news, the roof at Latimer is actually ready to go for solar. And it's my understanding that Jason Casey in Simsbury Public Schools is actually beginning to look at putting together an RFP to get solar installed.
He is as we speak. Yes, he is definitely in the process of doing that.
Great.
It's been posted.
Right. So
fantastic. Great.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's up on the Board of Ed website.
Yeah, we should know.
That's great news.
Soon.
So it's a huge first step. And then, as each additional, so for example, as the Henry James roof gets redone, that brings us another roof that we're able to potentially bring. So it's small dominoes, but they can make a big impact. So, but this is something where, connecting dots can be helpful, just acting as another pair of hands, support in some way, shape, or form. But there's not much we as a committee necessarily can do. This is more about supporting and educating and really, assisting our town staff here. And then also kind of bringing to light as we hear things, whether it's state money that's available or vendors that could potentially help achieve these goals. And it is also having the conversations with the architects at the schools and saying, hey, when you are thinking about rebuilding Squadron Line, what is the consideration that can be included for solar? Those sorts of conversations. So is there someone that is really passionate about this particular topic that would like to work closely with the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen on their goal setting?
So Jamie, if I can kind of look at this different, sort of a little bit more globally and on this thing, we have about 3 or 4 different, tangents here kind of moving into one, in lieu of having, a staff person dedicated, that Massachusetts, that West Hartford has. We do not have one.
Correct.
But for instance, the businesses, this is where I see EDC picking up a good piece of this, or, we, collaborate with them, on this, or they should be aware of where we are with the plan. Because I'm sure they are not. And I think it's a good idea that they are on board with this too, because that's what their mission is. Main Street.
Yes, unfortunately, Tom wasn't able to be here tonight, so this
Right.
would be a great. Yep.
Right. But I think it's good to the more commissions and boards that are responsible for pieces in town, that are aware of the sustainability plan, the word gets out in the pieces, and they are, they're smart people and they have a lot to offer also. But I think that's where they should come into something like this. Main Street Partnership also. They have the number of businesses that belong to them. So they're another one in terms of the business side. That would be two areas that we could, contact, or have them come speak with us, or we speak with them, what have you.
Sure. And that's great. And we can definitely take a bit of a road show.
Right. And I think that's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, with residents, I don't know, are the real estate agents, what does their association say about this? Or is there something embedded in their, realtor association regarding this? Because they're selling houses all the time.
Great
But
question.
I think that might be something, that would also be worth, investigating. Because right now we have the town and the school, they're basically one, under that roof at town hall. So we know what's going on the town side. Town side obviously knows what's going on in the school side. So we are constantly talking to one another in conversation about this. So that's another. So there's really three different, buckets of people and residents and businesses and schools and town buildings that would fall under this plan. And I think there's a lot of people that we could connect with or collaborate with what their mission is. Since we are an advisory committee, so that they understand that this was already, passed through Board of Selectmen. We're going to be looking at this, we've already had Mark come and speak with Board of Ed, regarding this. So it's on our mind, and we know that, but majority of the town does not. And I think that it would be good to have them get up to speed of where we are.
That's great. Well, thank you. Definitely great ideas for next steps that we can capture here. So a bit of a roadshow, taking the news of the passing of Part 1, the sustainability Part 1 energy, to the boards and commissions in town that this would be relevant to. Also the Main Street Association, and love the idea of the Realtors Association.
Yeah. It just came to me because residents, they sell house. I'm thinking of realtors because they're selling houses.
Right. And I know that solar panels are often a conversation,
right,
as it relates to buying or selling a house.
Right. Residents that are not, going to be buying or selling. I'm not quite sure what is the best vehicle or venue to get to them. I'm not quite sure, but I'm just thinking,
Yeah, and that's definitely, so that's part of the next steps that we have to figure out, right? Like, how do we do more outreach to residents in towns? And maybe that includes through the realtors. Going back up one to just this idea of, you mentioned, speaking, Mark had spoken to the Board of Ed, I think that was about a year ago just now. So I do think getting back in front of the Board of Ed and now saying, hey, this has been passed. We know, and it's great news that there's progress already being made with the Latimer RFP. I think that could potentially be a really solid next step. What do you think, Lydia?
Yeah, we're aware. We know, Matt had mentioned, and so did, and Jason had mentioned that spoke. Beard did a great job, and the rest of you. So we're all aware of that, and how the next steps as we move forward with the budget process, and then talking about capital improvement plan. So this is where this committee needs to stay tuned to what's going on, and bring their questions to the board about these areas that we have questions about. I don't want to say concerns, but just some questions, and we need to have a little bit more definitive answers on as we move forward. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I think the more that this committee also understands where we are, how we move through our capital improvement and through budget process, especially since we are talking about, school buildings, and the next one will be Squadron.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. If there is anyone that is, again, feeling very passionate about this focus area, please let us know. I do see Daniela. Thank you. You do have to jump, but thanks for raising the hand to lead the transportation pillar.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Awesome. In interest of time, because I know you had to leave, we can actually skip ahead of that right now. Is there anyone else that's really also excited about the idea of working with the towns and schools and different residents on EV options here? Okay, yours. One woman committee for right now, working group for right now. But again, I am happy to support in any way possible.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thanks.
And it sounds like Brian is definitely, he's not volunteering. He's definitely very interested in the topic as well, of especially the school buses.
Yeah, I mean, they're all of interest. I'm just.
No, I get it.
I'm struggling to separate.
They're interconnected.
Town and businesses versus residents.
Well, in some cases,
residents is a really tough nut to crack.
Yeah. And a lot of it, and you'll see the language in each of the sections for residents, it's about promoting the availability of these options.
Yeah.
And it's really just education. I think education is not explicitly written, but that's a huge piece, because we can let people know there's a program being run that you could take advantage of that they might not have known otherwise.
Right.
Again, what we did with the Power Smart campaign earlier this year is such a great example of that. I mean, that room was filled. And even the fair each year, letting people know what exists in the world of EVs. Maybe they're not going to take that next step, but it's great that we're putting it in their consideration set, or at least sharing some information that they might not otherwise have known. All right. So then going back up one to the transition of heating and cooling to electric heat pumps. This could also be geothermal, et cetera. So again, looking at towns and schools, as we're looking at replacing or building from new, and we're talking about an HVAC system, the ask that was in this document was to give due consideration to an all-electric HVAC system. So just making sure that, and we're not saying that must be purchased, because Lydia, to the point we raised earlier, the budget is a huge consideration. Also, service warranties, et cetera. But saying, when you're pricing out your system, when you're evaluating your system, when you're making your building plans, because this was a great example of what happened at Latimer. It was an afterthought, and there could have been a real opportunity there. So making sure that we're actually including that every time, not just occasionally in the process. All right. And then just, again, promoting, educating residents and businesses about the opportunities that a heat pump could present for them. Okay.
So this actually ties into the article I just posted in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
And this is another avenue. I mean, certainly the committee can work on how to reach residents directly, but I think working up to the state level can have just as much, if not more, impact. For those that didn't see that article on the Connecticut News Junkie website, basically in Massachusetts, the three main electric providers, including Eversource, are actually offering discounted electric rates to residential customers that have heat pumps, which I was very I found that very interesting when I read that. So, that's Massachusetts. So that begs the question, okay, are we talking about that at the state level in Connecticut? Or what other programs are there out there
Is
that
there
we could do at
anyone
the
in the
state level?
town that would
Because
normally handle that sort of like legislative and governmental affairs? Or is that more about, our state representatives like Melissa Osborne, for example?
That,
I don't know.
yeah, we
Yeah.
don't I mean, there isn't anybody in town
Yeah.
employees or town staff or
Yeah,
but
I
that
know
is
the
something.
town isn't going to do that, but
Right.
if the town government goes to the state government and starts to advocate for these sorts of things, does that have any impact?
Well, that's why I was
way
saying, is there
outside my
a
experience
vehicle
levels.
for that conversation to typically happen, which would normally be through like a
It would
legislative
happen through your
affairs?
it would happen through our state senator and rep,
Yeah.
which frankly, we can invite them to a meeting and have these conversations with them. Because we have
Exactly.
questions and it's educating them about and actually educating them before they start in January, because
Yeah.
then they'll be so busy, but educating them about, what we do and about the plan. So I'm writing that down. We could have them come to a meeting.
Love that. And also, no, thank you, Lydia. Okay. So is there anyone that's,
May I just- yeah.
oh yeah, go
I
Susan.
just wanted to say Eversource has been promoting heat pumps.
Yeah.
I know I got a letter in the mail and I think maybe an email too. I have a heat pump, so I don't even think I really looked at it. I didn't think about it. They do have some rebates available. They're not gigantic, but they do have rebates depending on whether you're just putting in something to supplement what you have, or if it's larger if you are replacing oil or gas or something. So that is available.
So maybe that's something then we should be.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Yeah, I mean, I'll put the link in here. Maybe there's a way we can promote that. I don't know how, but I can
Right,
find out
exactly.
more if this is the only possibility, because this is Energized CT. I don't know if Eversource
Right,
has
yeah.
something else that parallels that or piggybacks it.
Well, and Energized CD is partially funded by Eversource, correct?
Yeah, so they could have
it's
been
like
that
all-
Eversource was sending the letters, but this is the rebate. I'll see if I can find it if it was an email. I'll see if I can find that.
Awesome. Is there anyone who's really interested in sort of leading this focus area?
The residential business area?
The transition of so the heat pumps in general. Like, is there anyone who's really interested in?
Right. I don't think I should lead anything because I never know when I'm going to be here, but I'd help with that if somebody else wanted to take the lead.
We will take helping. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I know this has already gone really long, so I do want to keep us pretty well. It's as I mentioned, we're already at almost an hour and a half. So I want us to move through the rest of the agenda in a fairly quick fashion. So what I will do, I'm going to put back on the screen the agenda. The other piece that I was hoping that we would cover tonight is really determining the cadence of what's next. So we have part 1 energy that was passed. Very, happy for that. We do need to start on the next pieces. So tackling them either in small groups or like, 1 and 2 at a time it is more work for us. At the same time, it allows us to have a very focused and productive conversation. So I think what worked well when we presented part 1 energy to the Board of Selectmen is that it was very clear what that story was, what they were evaluating, and and they felt good about being able to say yes or no that they adopted our plan. I think that will benefit us in the future as well. I think there are some in the remaining areas, and that's reducing waste, preserving natural resources, promoting a thriving local economy. fostering diverse, equitable, and inclusive community engagement, encouraging sustainable development, and fostering clean and diverse transportation. There are some things here that could pair nicely together. Fostering clean and diverse transportation is a bit of an offshoot even of the energy plan. So we could potentially, there's not a massive amount of work to do there just in and of itself. But if people have already thought through this and have thoughts that they want to share quickly tonight, great. If not, if you want to maybe send it via email or something. But where is the center of gravity from this group for the next topic area to draft fully out as a plan and present to the Board of Selectmen? So I think probably in the interest of time tonight, I'll leave that with you as a prompt. And then we come back next time. This will actually be old business, which we've never had old business before on the agenda. So, yeah, please think about this. Think about, if you see logical ways of tying them together. I have opinions, but I don't want to speak for the whole group. But it will be important to know, where we think it's important to move next. Okay. I will then move on to open. Thank you. I'll move on to open forum. Is there anything? I know Baird was going to put in a plug for the newsletter. I know there was a bit of a conversation happening about that at the top of the call that I did interrupt, but. If there's.
So I'll just throw out, and I know I sent an email to you, Jamie, on this one about the Connecticut spending $20 million on 600 new bus shelters. This was another News Junkie article that came out.
Right.
I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're focusing that money on high traffic bus shelters, bus stops. None of
And
which
these are for the city buses, correct?
Sorry?
For city buses, correct?
I guess
Yes.
it says
Yeah,
I'll post the article link in the chat here in case anybody wants to grab it before the Zoom call shuts down. Yeah, it brought to mind here in Simsbury. I know we have some bus stops. I don't know how many. I don't know who maintains them. I have zero knowledge on that, but just from I've driven by a couple and it's literally just a sign in the middle of a grass area. There's not even a bench for somebody to sit. So it just, it brought the question to mind, has anybody ever actually looked at these bus stops, however many we have here in Simsbury, and thought, are these set up in kind of the best way possible? Whether it be, a shelter or trees for shading. Usually this is more of an urban issue, right? The lower income city neighborhoods that have, expanses of concrete and a bus stop just sitting there in the middle of all this. And so it's very hot versus more economically advantaged neighborhoods and cities, which have lots of trees and shaded bus stops. And, so it goes back to that whole environmental justice issue. So anyway, it popped in my head. I don't know anything about the bus stops here in Simsbury, but if anybody does and thinks this might be something to take a look at, then we can take a look at it.
Well, and I do think that definitely ties into items 4 and 6 on this list here. So we can definitely, I'd say, let's put that in sort of a parking lot to, no pun intended, to evaluate when we're looking at items 4 and 6.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Brian, our bus stop, we don't have any bus stops per se from the city buses, but the bus shelters are at the commuter parking lots. So we have the one over in Weetag commuter parking lot by Riverview. So there's a bus shelter there. There's 2 or 3 bus shelters over Iron Horse. I'm not sure the north end of town where they are, but wherever they have the commuter parking lots, there will be a shelter.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else for open forum? All right, then do I have a move
Good.
to adjourn?
Good meeting. We covered a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, we did. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Yeah, that's great. I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? All those in favor? All
Aye.
right. Aye. Then I adjourn the meeting. Thank you very
Good
much.
meeting.
We'll see you later.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town.
Bringing us together through local programming,
Education.
and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community.
Ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings.
And celebrating milestones.
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue.
Even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SEM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
Your schools,
and your government come together.